and thank you. Thank you, our presenters. While our attendees are joining one after the other, let's give it another 2 or 3 minutes as you've been able to invite a really large audience. So let's give it a few minutes. While we are waiting for everyone to join, I would like to invite our attendees to put in the chat room where they're from so that we can see who are joining us and how broad our audience is today, since we have presenters from all over. Let's look at the chat. So we have Gavin from Dubai and Prof. Sissy, is it you from Izmir? Wonderful, lovely to have you here. Cape Town, Johannesburg, Bongani, welcome from Australia. It's lovely to see you on board. From Baltimore in the USA, Harare, again, Istanbul, Egypt, Sydney, Cape Town, Turkey. So that is fantastic. Okay. Whilst everyone joins, continue joining and telling us where they're from, I think it's a good time for us to start to make sure that we save on time. My name is Lindy Grebe. I'm from the research firm of the Good Governance Academy. And I would like to welcome you today to Ethical Perspectives on Digital Auditing. And it really is my privilege to be joined by esteemed panelists. First of all, Prof. Cesar from Izmir University in Turkey, and she's one of our steering committee members. So it's always lovely to have you and your team on board. And together with Cesar, we have Dr. Leandi Steenkamp from the Central University of Technology in South Africa, Dr. Louis Schmidt from Tshwane University of Technology, also in South Africa, and then really excited to also have on board Professor Muharrem Kilic. Do I have that right? We're really excited to learn more from you on this very important and very relevant topic in an age of digital transformation. So without further ado, I'm handing over to Cesar. Thank you, Cesar.
So, dear all distinguished guests and all our participants, everybody, and we would like to say welcome from GGA Research Platform. And for some period of time, after this digitalization process and the COVID period, we promote most of our works via webinars and live webinars. This is really exciting for all of us. And imagine how many countries are involved in this event. You are all welcome. And this webinar aims to evaluate digital auditing activities from an ethical perspective, which is quite critical in those days. And especially as a result of technological developments, auditing is becoming more and more digital. Accordingly, while revealing the effect of technology on the auditing field, it also opens up a discussion. It's a quite, a long discussion for the ethical challenges encountered in addition to its advantages. So there are some challenges we know. So we will be discussing about the practical issues and academic approaches as well with our distinguished guest speakers. And we know that technology surrounds us in every aspect, and this is valid for every professional group, including auditing and all other industries. And in our webinar, the reasons for the digitalization of the auditing profession as a good profession and its development and the opportunities and threats it brings will be discussed together. Considering the need for ethical principles and standards, which are fundamental requirements in the use of technology, we should be considering the needs for the strict control risk assessment and auditing processes. And in this respect, it aims to contribute to all our colleagues and audited process owners by evaluating all the aspects of the results of audits carried out in the digital environment, hopefully with a legal and ethical perspective. So I would like to start from Dr. Liandi and Louis, but before that, I would like to give you some more information about our research platform and what we are doing about the projects and publications. You can recognize the names Prof. Muharrem Kılıç and I recently published Algorithmic Discriminations and Ethical Perspective of Artificial Intelligence, which we usually give valuable information about the legal and ethical perspectives from the field. In addition, we have another project, CAPIA project, related to continuous auditing in the public sector. And as you see, it's quite new publication coming soon with the chapter 10 belonging to our esteemed guest speakers, ethical perspective of digital auditing in the public sector. So we are all working on this topic, focusing on the priorities and needs of our audit profession. You are all welcome. And now I would like to once again introduce Dr. Liandi Stinkamp, Central University of Technology, as a senior lecturer in accounting and auditing, and also former head of department. She started her career with the audit firm PwC and was later appointed as audit manager of the Office of the Auditor General of South Africa. And as from 2009, she's living out her passion for teaching and research in academia. And Dr. Liandi is a qualified chartered accountant, certified internal auditor, certified information systems auditor, and professional accountant, and a member in good standing with all the affiliated professional bodies. Both her master's and PhD dissertations focused on the sectional title Industry in South Africa, specifically from an accounting and auditing perspective. So this is just a brief introduction for our distinguished guest speaker, and I will introduce Dr. Lewis afterwards. So floor is yours, dear Liandi. Thank you. I will stop sharing.
Thank you, Prof. Caesar. I think you can also do Louis' introduction now because we will be speaking together, if you don't mind.
Dr. Lewis Twain University of Technology is a doctor in the Department of Auditing and in South Africa. Louis' research interests are internal auditing, corporate governance and risk, information systems auditing, big data, and he's also the internal audit program coordinator and serves as ISACA academic advocate for the IT audit program offerings within the Department of Auditing. And we have other works, projects together. We are together in the CAPIA project, doing our best to promote our profession globally. So thank you. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Prof. Caesar, for that introduction. I will kindly share my slides. See, is the slides visible?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, just want to minimize. All right, so thank you, colleagues, and thank you for the opportunity. As Prof. Caesar mentioned, this is certainly a topical issue. I think the topic of artificial intelligence doesn't need much introduction. If all of us paid attention to what's happening in the world around us. We are striving or aiming today to give you a balanced view. In this presentation, we only have a couple of minutes, but just to try and give you a broad overview, not just from a theoretical or a research perspective, but also later on our colleague, Prof. Caesar and Prof. Will provide a more practical perspective as well. So as Prof mentioned already, from a research perspective, we are busy on the works of auditing, and specifically we have we are in the final stages of production in publishing a new book called Continuous Auditing with AI in the Public Sector. Specifically, our focus, as we know, the modern internal audit function is under continued scrutiny and pressure. And to some extent, there are a lot of concerns that are raised in terms of AI and whether our work, not just internal audit, any line of work, there's a threat and a concern from a humanity perspective as to whether we will all be unemployed within the next year or two because our work is going to be taken over by a robot. More so for the internal audit function that has to continuously operate inside business environments. As you and I know, the modern day internal audit function are exposed to various challenges in an ever-evolving business risk landscape that is dominated by big data and technology. And there's continuous pressure on the internal audit function to keep on providing assurance to our very broad set of stakeholders. And in doing so, we need to upskill ourselves, and we need to be open towards adopting tools and technologies such as AI. So what we will be...
Dr. Luis, your presentation is just stuck in the first page. Just to remind you. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. It's just, yeah, that was just a brief intro. So what we will be covering, colleagues, we are going to look at just giving you a broad definition of ethics and ethical perspective, because in adopting AI as an internal audit function, we need to do so in a cautious manner, and we need to be aware of the challenges and opportunities that comes with the adoption thereof. So we will also look into some ethical violations, some ethical challenges. Then towards the end of our presentation, we'll briefly touch on certain ethical standards that are published that provides guidance for the internal audit function in the adoption and use of internal audit. And then lastly, we will just do a quick wrap up of some best practices and frameworks that have been developed. So on this note, I will then give over to my colleague, Dr. Steenkamp, which will cover the rest of the slides, and then I will do a closure again. Thank you very much.
Okay, I trust that everybody can hear me. So before delving into the practical aspects of digital auditing in the public sector, we thought it would be crucial to first comprehend the underlying ethical philosophies and theories that shape our approach to this field. So ethical considerations always form the foundation upon which auditing practices are built, and it influences the decisions, actions, and outcomes of auditors. And then by exploring these ethical philosophies and theories, such as, for example, consequentialism, virtue theory, and deontology, auditors can gain a deeper understanding of the ethical principles and values that underpin their profession. So the three ethical theories that we consider to be quite relevant in this instance is the theory of consequentialism, virtue theory, and deontology. And they are especially relevant and appropriate due to their comprehensive coverage of ethical considerations and their applicability to real-world scenarios. Now, the theory of consequentialism is always, especially when you speak to students, it's probably one of the most easy to understand ethical theories. But consequentialism basically evaluates the morality of anybody's actions based on the potential outcomes thereof. So in digital auditing, where the ultimate goal is to then assure accountability, transparency, and efficiency in the public sector, applying consequentialism can provide a practical framework for assessing the impact of auditing practices on these outcomes. So auditors must consider the consequences of their actions and their decisions, such as the implications for transparency, for data privacy, and public trust. And the theory of consequentialism can guide auditors in prioritizing specific actions that lead to positive outcomes. So it's always thinking what the implication will be if you do something or if you make a decision. And also then not to just make decisions or choices that lead to positive outcomes, but to also minimize negative consequences. So it's a whole balancing act that you're busy with if you apply consequentialism theory. And then the effect will then be promoting ethical conduct in digital auditing. Then the other theory that's good to just stand back and think about is a theory that has been around for hundreds of years, since the time of the philosopher Aristotle. And it's what we call virtue theory. And that theory emphasizes the specific character traits and moral virtues of individuals involved in digital auditing processes. So it's much more of an inherent kind of theory, what is inside of the auditor, and especially in terms of traits and moral virtues. So in the context of the public sector, virtuous behavior among auditors then involves matters such as integrity, honesty, fairness, and respect, specifically when it comes to the rights of citizens. So when we practice digital auditing with virtue, it entails cultivating these specific ethical virtues and acting in accordance with them, even in the face of challenges or temptations. And then by prioritizing specifically virtuous conduct, auditors can contribute to the promotion of public trust and confidence in the integrity of government institutions. Then moving on to the third one is the theory of deontology, which was coined by Immanuel Kant also quite a number of years ago. But the objective of deontology is to then focus on inherent moral duties and principles that governs auditors' actions, irrespective of their consequences. So this theory takes a step back and takes a much more objective stance. And we oftentimes also see this specifically in the directive sections of codes of conduct. So it's quite objective. You can literally stand back and evaluate your actions based on objectives. So we know that auditors are obliged to uphold fundamental ethical norms, such as confidentiality, objectivity, and impartiality, regardless of external pressures or incentives. And deontological considerations also necessitates transparency in auditing processes, ensuring that our decisions are made in accordance with established rules and guidelines. So when we look at these three theories, they basically cover all ways of thinking about ethics in general. So considering the consequences of actions, also cultivating virtuous character traits, as well as adhering to moral duties and principles, can all have the effect that auditors can navigate various ethical challenges effectively and uphold the highest standards of integrity and professionalism in their practice. Louis, you can move on to the next slide for us. So once we have a grasp on the underlying theories and philosophies behind ethics, and it's always some good extra reading to do on the side, we can then move on to specific ethical violations. And it's been written about quite regularly over the last few years with the rise of artificial intelligence in general. So the first few violations that we will be speaking about is just some general background on AI as it applies to general technology. The first is bias, and bias poses a significant ethical challenge in digital auditing within the public sector. Auditors must always remain vigilant to avoid the influence of their personal biases or then organizational pressures that could distort their judgment or assessment of audit findings. So whether it's unconscious biases affecting data interpretation, or perhaps deliberate favoritism towards certain stakeholders, mitigating bias is essential for maintaining the integrity and impartiality of the auditing process. Privacy violations, the next one represents a serious ethical concern in digital auditing, particularly concerning how we collect, store, and use sensitive personal information. And it's a hot topic nowadays, written about quite significantly. And auditors must always uphold strict confidentiality standards and comply with relevant privacy regulations to safeguard the rights of individuals' privacy. So to make it slightly more applicable, any unauthorized access, disclosure, or misuse of personal data can undermine trust in the auditing process and may have serious legal ramifications as well. A lack of transparency further undermines credibility and accountability of digital auditing in the public sector. So auditors must ensure transparency in their methodologies, in procedures, as well as audit findings to enable stakeholders to understand and evaluate the audit process effectively. And we'll speak about that a little bit later as well. But without transparency, there's always risk of suspicion, risk of skepticism, risk of mistrust among the public, which can then diminish confidence in government institutions and their ability to conduct fair and impartial audits. Malice, I think, is quite self-explanatory. So maintaining a strong ethical culture and implementing robust internal controls and fostering a zero-tolerance approach to malice by auditors are essential for preserving the integrity and credibility of the auditing profession. And matters with malicious intent can include items such as fraud, corruption, sabotage, etc., and it represents a grave threat to ethical integrity. So yes, in summary, addressing these matters, which is bias, privacy violations, lack of transparency, and malice, requires a proactive commitment to ethical conduct. It also requires adherence to professional standards and vigilance against unethical behavior. And prioritizing ethical principles and values can assist auditors in upholding the trust and confidence of the public and contributing to the effective oversight and governance of government institutions. Louis, you can move on to the next one for us. So we are obviously coming from an academic perspective, and we always enjoy reading a little bit about history and where thinking comes from. So what we saw when we did the reading about ethics in AI and digital auditing was that research has been done about this for many years now, and the author James Rest in 1986 already came up with a framework of moral behavior, which is a comprehensive framework for understanding ethical decision-making processes. And it is still as applicable today in the technological environment as it was in 1986 when the framework was initially coined, and when it was more applicable to manual processes. So I'll just quickly discuss what Rest and his further research has said. He explains that each component then plays a crucial role in shaping our ethical conduct. And he has a nice way of explaining the four components, the first being moral sensitivity. where he then discusses that moral sensitivity refers to our ability to recognize ethical issues and dilemmas. So it's being sensitive to what is going on around you. And then in digital auditing, and especially within the public sector, auditors must always demonstrate this moral sensitivity by being able to identify potential ethical challenges, such as the ones that we mentioned earlier. And being very finely tuned to these issues, auditors can effectively navigate complex ethical landscapes, which our colleagues will also talk about a little bit later. And being morally sensitive can also assist an auditor in making informed decisions that upholds ethical standards. And then they also talk about the concept of moral judgment. And that involves the process of evaluating different courses of action. So that links back to the theory of consequentialism. Being able to evaluate the different courses of actions, what their implications can be. But it's also based on ethical principles and values. And in the context of digital auditing, auditors must always exercise sound moral judgment when assessing the implications of what they're doing. Moral motivation for me is also a nice way of putting the whole concept of internal drive to act in accordance with ethical principles and values, linking in then with the deontology theory. And auditors involved in digital auditing specifically, and within the public sector, must be motivated by a commitment to integrity, honesty, and accountability. And without motivation, moral motivation specifically, we will not get anywhere, especially in the light of external pressures that auditors see nowadays. And moral character then links into the virtue theory section, where auditors with strong moral character will exhibit qualities such as honesty, fairness, and responsibility. And by cultivating our own moral character as auditors through continuous learning, through continuous reflection and ethical self-awareness, auditors can enhance their ethical decision-making abilities and contribute to a culture of integrity within the public sector. Louis, you can move on to the next one for us. Yeah, so in short, Rest was one of the first researchers to come up with a framework on ethical decision-making specifically. And then many authors after him then built upon his research and the work that he did. And on the next slide, you will see that the framework by Lehner et al., Louis, I think you can move on to the next one, then offers us valuable insights into specific ethical challenges, which is inherent in digital auditing within the public sector. And this specific framework also, I think it comes from 2022, so it's very recent. And I'm just going to stand still at the most significant points that Lena said. The first, and I think it's just my own personal view, is the most important one there is probably lack of transparency and understanding of auditing decisions. It's one of the critical challenges that was highlighted by Lena's framework. A lack of transparency in auditing procedures can lead to a limited understanding of how auditing decisions are made. So in the public sector, our stakeholders are not always familiar with how auditors make decisions and how processes are actually worked through. And stakeholders may actually struggle to comprehend the rationale behind specific audit findings and recommendations. This can erode trust and confidence in the auditing process. And addressing this challenge, I think, requires even greater transparency than before in terms of communicating audit methodologies, criteria, sorry, as well as decision-making processes, so that we can ensure that our stakeholders have access to the relevant information to assess the integrity and validity of audit outcomes. So it's transparency, I think, is very important. The auditors themselves don't always fully understand what they are doing in terms of making use of new technologies. So definitely transparency in terms of communicating what we are busy with. Then privacy, security risks, and inappropriate use of data in auditing, as always, very important, and auditors must be vigilant in safeguarding sensitive information from unauthorized access. Our colleagues will also speak about the practical implications thereof a little bit later, but ensuring that there's no misuse of data and data breaches, very important there. Objectivity, bias, and discrimination. This also requires regular reflection of an auditor. It's becoming more and more difficult to identify, and it's a very fuzzy process. So regular reflection there is very important. Implementing measures to identify and address potential bias in data collection, analysis, and interpretation as well, so that we can enhance the credibility and reliability of our audit outcomes. Then lack of accountability. Auditors must establish mechanisms for accountability and oversight to ensure that the algorithms that we use are transparent, that they are auditable, and that there is somebody accountable for the actions of AI. I think that's a very important message in the literature nowadays, that there must still be ultimate human accountability. The system can't be held accountable, so there must be mechanisms in place and procedures for specifically human accountability. And this includes conducting regular audits of our AI systems, monitoring their performance diligently, and addressing any biases or errors that might arise. Trustworthiness of audit procedures. Auditors must also demonstrate integrity, competence, and reliability in their conduct to instill trust in the fairness and accuracy of our audit outcomes. And this requires adherence to professional standards and ethical principles. And we've seen recently that we have all our new internal auditing standards coming out, and definitely continuing our professional education in terms of professional standards, very important. And then lack of human judgment in auditing procedures is also something tricky that we are seeing. So while AI technologies can offer many benefits in terms of efficiency and scalability, they also, concerns come about the lack of human judgment in the auditing process. So in short, auditors must strike a balance between automation and human oversight to ensure that these critical decisions are informed by our ethical considerations, contextual understanding, and professional judgment. So this then involves quite a complex integration of AI tools with human expertise, so that we complement these automated processes and enhance the quality and integrity of our audit outcomes. Louis, I think you can move on to the next one. So just in short, when you read all of these ethical theories, philosophies, and even move on to your frameworks and models, there are 5 basic principles that stand out, and they are transparency, making sure that we as auditors have open processes, that our processes are accessible and understandable to all our stakeholders, fostering trust and confidence, that we really safeguard and protect privacy of sensitive information and make sure that unauthorized access does not take place, ensuring that our fairness of the audit procedures, that it's conducted without bias, ensuring equitable treatment for all parties involved. Independence, as always, maintaining the integrity and objectivity of our audits, making sure that it's free from undue influence, and then accountability, being accountable for what we do, for our actions and decisions, and promoting responsible conduct and ensuring that our audit processes serve the public trust. And by upholding this, promotion of good governance and accountability will hopefully be the end result of that. So thank you. Louis will then be taking over the rest of our presentation.
Thank you, Leandi. So, colleagues, with all of that being said, I think we are all privileged to be part of a global profession, whether it be specialization within internal audit or IT audit with our two global professional bodies, namely the IIA, the Institute of Internal Auditors, and ISACA. There are various best practices frameworks that have been published with one key objective, and that is to foster and to focus on when it comes to the use of artificial intelligence and the adoption thereof, specifically into the internal audit methodology, it's about uniformity. Because as my colleague mentioned, the new global internal audit standards that has recently been published, we know it becomes effective January 2025, but currently it has been published. So it's all about being part of a global profession, and if we are to adopt and apply the principles of AI, whether it's the use of generalized audit software, and all these tools and techniques that are available to the modern internal audit function, it's all about applying that in a consistent manner. And these governance frameworks that have been developed of late is in a response to ensure that when we, as specifically now talking with my audit hat on, specifically from an audit perspective, when we adopt and apply this, it provides guidance. If we, as an internal audit function, for example, wants to implement this, and we are concerned about certain aspects, and specifically with reference to the previous slide that my colleague mentioned about the upholding the principles of transparency, privacy, fairness, accountability, these best practices frameworks are there to provide a holistic end-to-end view in the adoption and application of technologies. And as I said, with a key objective of ensuring whatever approach we follow, that at least there is a common baseline, a common foundation in terms of the uniformity of the adoption thereof, in enabling the internal audit function in using this in an ethical, in using and adopting AI in an ethical and responsible manner. Then, colleagues, to just land off the discussion, I think for all of us, I think we realize the reality that we are currently faced with is AI, although there's a lot of opportunities that comes with it, yes, there is also a lot of risks or concerns or challenges that are also associated with the use of AI. That does not mean AI is gonna go away. In my personal opinion, I believe AI is here to stay. It is for us as internal auditors, IT auditors, in our capacity to adopt and to be creative in the adoption of these tools and technologies that are out there. Because I think the one thing that there are a lot of things that we are not certain about, but the one thing that we are certain about is the fact that the day and age that we are living in is dominated by an ever-evolving change. So businesses goes through change as we speak at rapid speeds, and we as internal audit, with our main objective to provide assurance, and on this assurance journey, what are we doing as the modern day internal audit function? If we have to really reflect on what we are doing, are we 10 years behind? In some of our research that we conduct, I also, as part of my doctoral study that I completed a few years ago, I had the privilege of also replicating that into 7 international countries. And what we are seeing is that even with the adoption of generalized audit software, such as ACL, IDEA, whatever audit software package you use, is some internal audit functions, whether it's in developed countries or underdeveloped countries, developing countries, they still lack behind in terms of their level of maturity in the adoption of technology. Now already we are in the phase of AI, but yet certain internal audit functions have not even mastered the adoption of generalized audit software. And the volumes and the data and the control environments that we are finding ourselves in is ever evolving, ever changing by the speed of light. So it is for us as an assurance function, as one of the key pillars in providing assurance over the adequacy and effectiveness of the risk and controls inside an organization, to really take a step back and reflect as to what would be the best approach for us to adopt and embrace technology, and not to run away from it, but what are we doing in terms of upskilling ourselves and making sure we continue providing independent assurance with the use of technology, and not to view it as the opponent in being under threat, that our jobs might be on the line, but rather embrace the challenges that comes our way, and using that to the benefit of providing effective and efficient audits. Colleagues, I think that is, I know we are also pressed for time. That is it from my side. I believe there will be an opportunity for some questions.
And thank you very much for Dr. Liandi and Dr. Luis. Now it's time to introduce our professor of law from Turkey, and he is also a board member and chairman of Human Rights and Equality Institute of Turkey. And there are many other things I can tell about our respected, honorable Professor Muharrem Kılıç. But considering our time limitation, I rather prefer giving the floor to him. And floor is yours, Professor. Thank you.
Everyone. Thank you very much, Professor Caesar. Actually, I am, as a chairperson of Human Rights and Equality Institution of Turkey, I'll be dealing with the case, with the issue. It is a very crucial issue, actually, on the framework, ethical framework of AI-based programs, actually. Firstly, I'd like to give my all greetings to you all with my respect. As I mentioned, I will discuss now artificial intelligence from an ethical perspective in, as you know, in the digital world we live in. As myself, as a chairman of our institution, I am very pleased to speak to such as interested audience on this very crucial topic. As you know, the modern world has separated from the ancient world with a radical break from the initial industrial revolution. By this revolution, actually, that followed new technical move on the age of intensive mechanization was open. This forced all countries, all nations, actually, to have a mandatory internal dependency relationship with the world in the process of globalization. Today's humanity is living in a new digital age where the globalization of digital technologies such as artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and robotics. Artificial intelligence is thought to have emerged in the middle of the 20th century at the same time as the historical past of modern computer technology. All these new developments are compatible with the technological progress motto idealized in terms of modern human history. But at the same time, this situation has the potential to lead humanity into a deep crisis, especially based on ethical values. Today, we are facing with an AI-based digital world order. The AI-based digital world order which continues to develop speedily with technological advances, points to a great transformation from the business sector to the health sector and educational services to the judicial sector. As a result of the development of AI as a creation of digital age technology, today humanity exists in an algorithmic society that imperviously surrounds individual, social life, and public space with all sectors. This modern algorithmic order we are in has transformative effects, crucial effects actually. In today's world, where technological fetishism prevails, there are serious concerns about the protection of fundamental rights and freedoms and the balance of freedom and security. Thus, AI is directly linked to health and safety, freedom, privacy, dignity, autonomy, and non-discrimination. And these also include ethical concerns. Perhaps the most important risk of using AI systems in algorithmic decision-making is the potential to produce biased results. There is a concern in the direction that the potential of algorithmic bias to have a more dangerous dimension than human bias. Since these technical mechanized systems do not carry an element of humanity, they pose more risks in terms of bias. At this point, Microsoft's chatbot on Twitter or X, Tay, offers a different example, interesting example. It is seen that this bot is racist and misogynist over time with what it has learned from people. This is an example of algorithms reflecting a copy of the world. Therefore, it should be emphasized that social development cannot be mentioned when it comes to technologies where ethics are ignored. In addition, the good or bad intentions of the mind that develops the algorithmic hardware of the system have the potential to turn into systemic bias violence. All these developments make fundamental rights and freedoms more fragile in terms of human rights politics. In parallel with this situation, the significance of protecting fundamental rights and freedoms is increasing. For these reasons, it is significant that national human rights institutions carry out studies on AI and human rights. In this context, the issue of preventing discrimination arising from the use of AI has become a major research topic on the agenda of international human rights associations, besides human rights institutions and other relevant institutions operating at the national and regional levels. There are principles about AI, which is called Asilomar AI principle, as you know, one of the AI principles. This principle contains, as you know, again, there are three parts, which are research issues, ethics and values, longer-term issues. According to these principles, ethics and values include safety, and this means AI systems must be trustworthy, secure, and verifiable along with their operational life. According to the safety principle, AI systems must be trustworthy, secure, and verifiable along with their operational life. There are other principles also, such as failure transparency, judicial transparency, value alignment in AI systems, freedom and privacy, shared prosperity, non-subversion, which I indicated in a detailed way in our book published by Springer, Volume 1. In conclusion, AI systems have an effect on our lives. So AI systems need accountability to be properly deployed and educate solutions provided. In addition, artificial intelligence systems should be transparent and explainability in order to determine where, how, and for what purpose they are used. According to fairness and non-discrimination principle, because of the tendency of these technologies to be discriminatory and against equality, AI applications developed need to be used in a fair and non-discriminatory way to cover all humanity. Artificial intelligence technologies should contain professional responsibility. Undoubtedly, AI applications developed have the potential to have a great impact on our lives. Therefore, people who develop and implement this technology should have a responsibility from planning long-term results to sharing them with relevant people. These are all I would like to mention in this limited time. I would like to express that we will continue to work to make it possible for this digitalization process to take place on the base of rights and fundamental freedoms and ethics also. Thanks, really.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we will continue with new publications to contribute more to the global issues like ethical, dilemmas, algorithmic discrimination, which is quite important, critical for the governance structure to work in good sense. So after such a good presentations and discussions, we can just say that on the one hand, we have the automation, robotics, and technology. If you want to make it accountable based on ethical perspective, we need to start from the human accountability and the human judgment, which will be quite critical as our either internal audit or IT audit, whatever the auditor profession will be critical in every industry, starting from the public sector. That's why we start from public sector to cover the whole country's issues, strategic, start. But it's not enough. Please join us for our research platform and contribute to our research topics. You can see that Dr. Liandi and I am one of the members of, including Luis and others, many other colleagues with the CAPIA project, but not limited to this. We have Lindy with the corporate governance structure with a global vision, big picture. Please come and join our sessions and webinars. You are always welcome. And thank you very much for this. And I am just giving to Lindy to tell something as a closing as our steering committee member. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Cesar. I can't believe we're finishing within our time frame. You've shared so much really important and interesting information, and I think there's so much more that needs more exploring and understanding and application. I think from my side, I made the note to say that these important principles that you touch on ethics in digital auditing really applies to the organization, the digitalized organization or environment in modern times, not only to internal audits, but also to corporate governance, etc. So definitely such an important topic, and that can be applied and further researched or explored and understood in many fields. Then you actually said it, and that's the note I've also made, is to say doesn't matter where we go and what time and era we're in, the human factor remains important. Liandi especially touched on the importance of the internal auditor in person as an actor within the process, applying professional judgment, ensuring working on the ethical side of digital auditing. And then we also touched on with Prof. Kilic on the absolute huge impact that digital auditing, the digital era and transformation, but that includes auditing and the important role of auditing on society as a whole. So we're certainly in interesting times, and there are so many interesting things to explore and understand. So once again, from the Good Governance Academy and the Research Forum, thank you so much for contributing to the body of knowledge out there. And from our side, also a big thank you to Prof. King and Carolyn Chalmers and the Good Governance Academy for being such a valuable and important platform to share knowledge to everyone that's interested, because it's important that we contribute to the well-being of purposeful organizations as well. So from my side and to our presenters, thank you for your time, and see you on the next webinar. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.